Evan Jaqua is a successful international business development specialist with an immense range of personal and work experiences in multiple countries. Fluent in several foreign languages, the idea that forms the basis for the Solution Party came from having seen the world from multiple perspectives. He has concluded that is a critical time in history. An urgent reform is needed so that our country can not only reverse its alarming decline, but most importantly, achieve its potential based on freedom and prosperity. My name is Eric, and welcome to the craziness that lives inside my head.
And I just to let you know, I've lived around the world in Japan, South America, the U.S., and I'm just seeing the world from a lot of different points of view. And during all these different experiences, I've formulated some ideas based on what I see as a lot of commonality across different cultures and different regions. And the thing that strikes me most is that, Ronald Reagan, he said, when he was running for president, he said that government isn't the solution, government is a problem. But I think he actually needed to be a little more specific. From my point of view, the problem, all of our problems really come down to one real basic thing. It's our politicians. And the reason is this. The reason is really quite simple. The human brain is a wonderful thing. But the human brain has one big weakness, and it forms addictions very easily, whether we're talking about addictions to drugs, to alcohol, to gambling, to video games. But probably the most addictive thing there is power. And people, once they get power, they don't want to they don't want to give it up, and they'll do anything to hold on to it. And as John Boehner, the former House Speaker or Speaker of the House, said, we give people a little power and it completely changes them. And it's just like if you know somebody who started to develop a hopeless, out of control addiction, you know that addiction could completely change them.
Yeah.
Whether it's, like I say, to drugs. Well, that's what happens with political power. I like to think that, if Vladimir Putin were painting houses outside of Moscow, he'd probably be a pretty nice guy. Or if Kim Jong-il, the North Korean dictator, grew up surfing in Hawaii, he'd probably be a pretty nice guy. Question is do we want our politicians, what are we electing our politicians to do? To work for us or to get reelected? And, Eric, if you had to hire somebody, a 4-year contract to do some work for you, and they spent over half their time just lobbying to get a contract extension, you probably wouldn't be pretty happy. And that's exactly what we have now. Our politicians spend at least half of their time in constant campaign mode, raising money, going to campaign rallies, and then lying and saying truth, saying anything, actually, just saying anything to get reelected and to hold on to power. And if I were a doctor and I had to prescribe you something very addictive, well, the way to keep you from getting addicted would be to give you small portions spread out. And that's exactly how we have to allocate political power. Small portions spread out. Now, a lot of people say, well, gosh, don't we need experienced politicians? And I say, well, what are politicians experienced at? Well, they're experienced at being politicians. And they're not concentrating as much at all, actually, on really doing their job and working in the best interests of all their people, not just the ones who voted for them. So the very fundamental idea behind the Solutions Party is let's just get rid of the whole notion of of re-election. If you get elected to office, you have one chance to make your mark in history. Re-election is not an option, so go in there, express your ideas, listen to other people's ideas, come to some sort of compromise, and let's move forward. That's what our country should be about ideas and vision, not about politics and tribalism and out of control emotions. So that's the fundamental idea, and from that, a whole bunch of other ideas uh, have been developed because all of these problems are kind of intertwined. It's you've got to kind of have a blanket approach in order to really address so many of the deep problems of our country. So that's in a very big nutshell, sort of the idea behind this.
Yeah, that's and like um I've been saying for a long, long while to my friends when it comes
Uh-huh.
to politics and who to vote for. And I used to get frustrated with them
Uh-huh.
because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't vote in every election. If there's
Uh-huh.
nobody that I feel qualified for me to vote for, I just don't vote.
I
And they
understand.
saying, well, you shouldn't do that. You should vote for so and so. And you vote for the person that, how they put it? Well, they figured, well, if you don't like a politician, then you should vote that politician out. But why would I want to vote, let's say, a Republican? Why would I want to vote Democrat just to get rid of a Republican if the Democrat isn't as good as the Republican? I mean,
Exactly.
I call it voting. I call it voting for the lesser of the two evils.
Right.
And I find out as I'm pretty old, but as the years go on, I don't see no difference between the two Democrats and Republicans. I think they all just want to get the power in there and just
Exactly. That's exactly the problem. You know, uh, a congressman, I think he was from North Carolina, whose name is escaping me now. He says the whole budgetary process is basically to keep the powerful in power.
right.
And, you know, and, again, we want, what is the big difference between us and the autocracies? Well, in a democracy, we should have a competition of ideas. We should have a competition of vision. And that should be a far superior system to an autocracy where it's just one guy basically decides. And we should be doing a lot better against countries like China. And we should be completely invulnerable to the attacks on our democracy from Russia if our democracy were functioning correctly. But the problem is that our politicians are actually this whole division that we have in our country, the whole tribalism, is actually beneficial to them. And one of the reasons why is because let's look at our presidential election. We have the 50 states, but the whole election really comes down to a handful of purple counties in a few states. I mean, why is it? Let's ask ourselves, why is it that three counties outside of Milwaukee, or three counties outside of Atlanta, or three counties outside of Phoenix matter more than all of California, matter more than all of Texas, matter more than all of Florida, matter more than all of New York? It's absolutely crazy. Both Kamala Harris should be campaigning in Texas and Florida, trying to get votes. Donald Trump should be in California, New York, trying to get votes. They shouldn't be. We shouldn't have this crazy system where all of the effort is put into like maybe 20 counties nationwide. But this tribalism where California is automatically blue and Texas is automatically red benefits the parties. It shouldn't be that way. They should be fighting for votes nationwide. This tribalism, it also benefits the politicians because you get people who will just automatically vote for a party regardless of the ideas being presented. And we don't want that. We want to have one candidate promoting a certain set of ideas, another candidate proposing in an honest, clear, and civil way their ideas, and we want to decide, as individuals, which ideas we like best, vote, and move forward. And not just, well, I'm not going to vote Republican because I never vote Republican. I don't like the Republicans. I'm not going to vote Democrat. We don't want that. And I just want to say before I go on too much longer is that it didn't used to be. I mean, we've always had some of this, but it didn't used to be as intensely divisive as it is now. I can remember in 1976 when I was helping deliver bread and pop to rural Utah. People could have honest discussions. Well, am I going to vote for Jimmy Carter or am I going to vote for Gerald Ford? There wasn't the viciousness that there is now. Or when I went to college, I went to a small liberal arts college, which was liberal in every way. And I was a young Republican. I had just gotten through voting for Proposition 13 in California. I was staunchly anti-Soviet, staunchly pro-capitalist. And I got into a lot of, pretty intense discussions with my fellow students. But I can tell you this, after all the heated arguing, after all the emotionally charged debating, after all the points and counterpoints have been made, we can still go and have lunch together. We can still go have dinner together. We can still study together or have coffee and laugh together, because even though we had very different points of view, we appreciated that each one of us had the best interests in heart. We all were well-intentioned, and we all appreciated that we had different points of view, and we learned from each other's points of view, and that's exactly how we want it. We don't want to demonize people for their ideas. We want those ideas out, because sometimes even a bad idea can be the inspiration for a great idea. So we need to get the tribalism out. We need to get the lies out. We need to get the out of control emotions out of our politics and concentrate on the ideas and the vision. And the way to do that, I think the first step is to make it very hard for politicians to get addicted to power.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is you haven't talked about is the electoral college vote pick the president.
Well, that's kind of a joke, actually. I mean, this is exactly one of the reasons why we have this terrible situation. If it were allocated in a proportional way, for example, Trump wins 40% of California, he gets 40% of the electoral college, that would go a long way. But when it's this winner take all, they don't even try to, like, Trump doesn't even try to campaign in California. Harris doesn't even try to campaign in Texas. It's just, and then we get this, okay, it doesn't even come down to purple states. It comes down to a few purple counties, and probably within those purple counties, a few purple cities. It's starting to become purple neighborhoods. It's, in fact, there was an article in the New York Times, I haven't actually read it, but it said, "Forget purple states." The headline was, the election comes down to these 20 micro communities, and it's just crazy. And so that's another thing that we should reform at some point. But I think that even more importantly than that is to set up a system where our politicians are going to be concentrating on doing their job, and going to be concentrating on promoting their ideas, listening to other ideas, and working with others to pick the best ideas from both sides and to move the country forward without, re-election is the priority, or getting Republicans, elected is the priority. And, this gets down to also the problem with our political parties is that they've just become too institutionalized, which means that the priorities of the party become the priority, even more priority than the interests of the country. And so we want to reform by proposing reforming our whole political party system as well.
Well, it would be nice if a politician is talking to me about, let's say, making the economy better. I would like for them I would like to know how they're going to do it and how does it affect me. I mean, I hear so much what I call lip service. Are we going to do this? Are we going to do this? Well, how are you going to do it? I mean,
Yeah.
How is it going to affect where I live and my neighborhood and my family? Don't tell me you're going to do it. How are you going to do it?
Exactly. But, part of the problem, the huge problem is that, you have a relation, like, well, let's think of an analogy between a drug pusher and a drug user, a drug addict. Okay. What is the drug addict needs the drugs and the drug pusher gives them the drugs. Okay. What's the relationship between our politicians who are addicted to power and the special interests? Okay, the special interests are like the drug pushers. The special interests help keep them in power. How do they do that? They do it through direct financing of their campaign. They do it through misinformation. And probably the biggest weapon of all is culture war. If you pick any culture war issue, I can guarantee you there's somebody making a lot of money off of it, or there's somebody enjoying a lot of power because of it. But it's not, we've always had divisions in our country, but it doesn't have to be tribal. People have always disagreed, and people are always going to disagree. The key point is how do you handle those disagreements? Now, in the old days, how did they handle disagreements? Well, they sharpened the spears, they sharpened the swords, and they went at it, and the best band of brawlers won. Well, eventually humans figured out that that wasn't the best way to really advance things. We're always going to disagree. The key point is how do we handle those disagreements? And the way you handle those disagreements is you have an honest, clear, civil discussion of the different ideas. You vote on them and you move forward. And that's one of the foundations of human progress. But with this sort of unholy alliance of special interests and politicians, one of the results has been these culture wars. I mean, let's look at the gun industry. Let's look at the fossil fuel industry. We can look at a whole bunch of different issues behind the culture wars, and you're going to see an alliance between special interests and power-addicted politicians. And so, when they want to talk about the economy, making the economy better, well, they always do so. They always talk about things in really vague ways. That this is another thing that really drives me crazy about the politicians is that they talk in vague, almost meaningless ways.
Yeah.
That doesn't really there are no concrete ideas. They're trying to have it the best of both ways, where they're catering to their special interests while making it sound like they're working for the whole country, but actually they're really working for their special interests, the people who help keep them in power, the people who help satisfy their addiction to power. And so once re-election is out of the picture, once our politicians are not addicted to power, it's going to be much harder for special interests to exert control over them as they are now.
Well, I'll be honest with you, it's what you just said is up to the politician as being controlled. I mean, if they really want to do, if they're going to be, how you put it, a politician for the people, for the whole country, then they shouldn't allow themselves, what you just said, it is power, because they shouldn't allow themselves to want to get in power by pandering to a certain, group of people in the society, which means there's the special interest is in themselves, like you just said, to get in power.
Exactly. The whole thing is that, the politicians are the ones who are given the sacred power of the people.
Right.
Now, that sacred power of the people should be used for the benefit of the people.
Right.
But it's been hijacked by special interests. And what do the special interests get the politicians get the support in multiple ways from the special interests. And the special interests, they get the benefit of having these politicians basically working for them. If you look at the tax code, that's all. Let's just, or you look at let's look at the terrible problem with gun violence in our country. Now, we can have the best of both worlds, I believe, where we have the greatest gun freedom and we have the safest gun society. But unfortunately, the gun industry has made it sound like that their interests, which is what's their business model? Their business model is selling more guns. Well, we don't want more guns. You can have a situation where, people, you have the greatest gun freedom and the greatest gun by enforcing one simple thing: responsibility. Right now, the way we have it, it's like anybody can get. It's like you could just get a driver's license whether you know how to use the vehicle or not. It's like we're handing out driver's license without confirming if the person knows how to operate the vehicle, if they know or whether they know the rules of the road. And then after they cause a 60-car pileup on the freeway, we say, oh, I guess they weren't a responsible driver after all. And that's exactly what we have now. People are buying guns, whether we know they're going to use them responsibly or not. And then, these terrible mass shootings happen. And, just like the guy who shot up 60 people or killed 60 people in Las Vegas, or the Walmart shooting, or the church shooting, or the mall shooting. All of these people were law-abiding citizens until they weren't. And the way you could address that is that, well, gosh, if you could enforce responsibility, that in order to get a gun, you have to meet a certain level of showing that you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that would affect potentially gun sales, because not any Joe could just get a gun. But that would be a good thing. Having fewer guns, having them owned by responsible people, rather than just having this free for all where anybody, whether we know they're going to use their guns responsibly or not, gets the gun. But I guess my point here is that the politicians and the gun lobby are in lockstep with this, and this is why there's never any progress on this, because the gun lobby helps keep these politicians in power. And these politicians who are working for the gun lobby aren't going to do anything to address this problem other than offer their thoughts and prayers after each mass shooting.
I know. I went had a little discussion with a couple of friends of mine. I used to live in New York, but now I live in the sticks. And we had a discussion on the guns. What do you need a gun for? I said, well, if somebody break in my house and the sheriff is 20 miles away, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Right. Sit there and get killed?
Right.
I understand not having guns in the city. I'm not against that. When I lived in the city, what would I need a gun? I live right down the block from the police station. They could be there, hopefully, in a couple of minutes. But when you live, there are a lot of people who live out in the sticks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they need to protect themselves. You can't expect the sheriff, and the deputies to especially if they're 20 miles away, by the time they get there, you'll be gone.
Style. Yeah, team over Star Trek style. Just up here.
But
exactly.
But people in the cities don't realize that. A lot of people in the city don't realize that.
Well, the thing is that I think this is something we should all be able to agree on, is that we want only responsible people to have guns. We don't want irresponsible people to have the ability to kill, multiple people very quickly. Yeah. And if you enforce responsibility, but I didn't read to get into a discussion about gun control here, but I guess my point more is that, talking about this alliance between, special interests and politicians, where the overall good of the country is sacrificed. The gun lobby gets the support of these politicians, and these politicians get the support of the gun lobby, in which, the gun lobby then, gives them their A grade, and they get these people who are just mindlessly on one side of the culture war or the other. We don't want just mindless voting depending on which tribe you're talking about. We want to have a positive discussion of the different ideas to make things better, without the special interest meddling, without the out of control emotions, the out of control tribalism, because we can come up with best of all world solutions if we don't have politicians whose first priority is staying in office, and we don't have special interests who that have such overwhelming control over our politicians.
Now here's the thing I was thinking about: a third party. This might be when I express my feelings with other people. Of course, they don't want a third party, because the third party is going to take votes away from the Republicans or the Democrats, which I think is crazy. If a third party has an idea that fits both, let's say you're a Democrat and you like what the third party say, or you're a Republican and you like what the third party say, in my opinion, vote for the third party. But like you were saying in the beginning, some people who are Republicans, they don't care. They're Republican, period.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So this is exactly why I proposed that we put a 12-year limit on government recognized political parties. Government recognized means where you have a certain minimum number of people so that you can get automatically put on the ballot. Because what happens is that there's a very famous historian called Carroll Quigley. He wrote a great book called The Evolution of Civilizations, which he talks about how organizations inevitably become institutionalized, which means that the priorities of the organization become even greater than what the organization was set out to do. And this is what happens with political parties. They become institutionalized where the priorities of the party become even greater than the priority of the country or the original priorities of what the party was set up for. An extreme example of this is the Communist Party, which was set up to liberate and advance the interests of workers, but it became more of a religious cult, vicious dictatorship, and that couldn't care a hoot about the workers. They're only interested in keeping power, and political parties should be organizations that people of like-minded ideas can organize and present candidates accordingly. But they've become way too tribal, and the atmosphere is just way too toxic. And the way to get the best of both worlds is to put a 12-year limit on our political parties. After 12 years, a political party has to be disbanded. The leaders of the political party cannot become leaders of a new political party. And my feeling is that if you do that, if the Republicans and Democratic parties disappear and new parties have to be formed, you're going to go a long way to getting away from this mindless tribalism. I'm Republican. I'm never going to vote Democrat. I'm Democrat. I'm never going to vote Republican. We don't want that. We want people listening to the ideas from both sides and then deciding, yeah, I think I like these ideas a little better. These ideas from this party sound a little more appealing to me. And the way to get the tribalism out of our political parties is to put a time limit on our political parties. And some people might say, well, won't the new political parties just be carbon copies of the old ones? And I don't think so. I don't think anybody's going to try to start a new political party and say, hey, we're just like the last guys. They're going to want to show new ideas, new vision, and you're going to have new alliances. You might, for example, if we were to disband the Democrats and Republicans now, you might get an alliance between like Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, and others on one side, and coalitions with AOC and Ted Cruz or whatever on the other side. We want new ideas, new coalitions, new alliances with these new political parties, and that would, I think, get a lot of this mindless, partisan tribalism out of the picture. So that's one of the things that what I propose is a 12-year limit on political parties.
Okay, so I'm gonna end it there, but what's your website and everything? I'm gonna put it in the video.
It's www.solutionsparty.org. It's just exactly like it sounds. Solutions Party with an S, solutionsparty.org. And so, it's got, I'm regularly updating it. In fact, I'm making a Spanish version of it now. And I'm going to be putting some new articles on there shortly. But I hope that we can continue to have discussions. I really I've enjoyed this very much.
Yeah, I want to say one thing, and I shouldn't say this. I mean, maybe I was always thinking that maybe people should go and take a test before they be able to vote.
Well, that's exactly what I've proposed in election reform, is that you give people incentives to learn the issues and to vote. In other words, like, for example, if you take a test, and if you ace the test, you get a whole list of different goodies that you can get, like an Apple gift card, for example. Apple could donate a or free pass to the national parks, things like this, so that if you want to address the big problem, one of the big problems of our elections is that we have too many ill-informed voters, and they're ill-informed because of all the garbage, the political ads, which are, in some cases just lies, extreme distortions, overly simplified, and you have a minority of voters. So our elections are being decided by a minority of ill-informed voters, and we want to get away from that. We want to give incentives for people to learn the issues and to vote. And those are some of the things I proposed in the election reform article. And to address your point, because this is one of the great weaknesses of democracy, is the voters who don't have a good grasp of the different ideas or good knowledge of their candidates. And too often their candidates, their visions of candidates are maybe from one attack ad or another. They make the attack ads make the guy look like something out of a demon from hell or something.
Yeah. Okay, Evan, right? Evan?
That's right. Yes, Eric.
All right. So it was nice talking to you.
Wonderful talking with you, Eric. I've immensely enjoyed this, and I hope we can have another discussion before too long.